On January 15, 2026, the largest document dump in American legal history went public. 3 million pages, court records, flight logs, bank statements, FBI memos that were never meant to see daylight, names that were protected by layers of legal armor for nearly 3 decades. This isn't another conspiracy theory video. This is about what the courts have now verified, what federal judges have authenticated, what grand juries have confirmed. For years, we asked, how did Jeffrey Epstein, a man with no college degree, no Wall Street pedigree, no visible means, control billions of dollars, fly world leaders on private jets, and operate with impunity across 3 continents? The question was never what he did. We've known that since 2008. The question was always, who let him do it? Who was behind Jeffrey Epstein, the architecture of absolute power? Today we're going to build the map. Not with rumors, not with speculation, but with the architecture of the system itself, the banking records, the intelligence contacts, the legal loopholes, and the billion-dollar paper trails that kept Jeffrey Epstein untouchable. Because in February 2026, we finally have the receipts. Let's establish where we are right now. In December 2025, Congress passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act, a bipartisan bill forcing the declassification of sealed documents related to Jeffrey Epstein's criminal investigations, civil lawsuits, and financial dealings. On January 15, 2026, the floodgates opened. 3 million pages. Depositions from dozens of witnesses who'd been silenced by non-disclosure agreements. FBI case files from 1996, 2002, and 2008. And critically, financial records showing the movement of over $1.2 billion through offshore accounts, shell companies, and elite banking institutions. But here's the thing about document dumps this large. The truth doesn't jump out at you. It's buried in the patterns, the repeated names, the suspicious timing of wire transfers, the memos stamped, "Do not file." And in February 2026, as researchers, journalists, and legal analysts combed through the archive, something became undeniable. Jeffrey Epstein didn't build his empire. He was installed into it. Pillar 1, the financial engine, Leslie Wexner, and the power of attorney. Let's start with the money, because without the money, none of this works. In 1987, Jeffrey Epstein, then a relatively unknown financier who had been fired from Bear Stearns for dubious trading practices, met Leslie Wexner. Wexner was the billionaire founder of the Limited and Victoria's Secret, a retail titan. And according to court documents unsealed in 2026, Wexner did something almost unprecedented in the world of ultra-high net worth individuals. He gave Jeffrey Epstein full power of attorney over his fortune. Now, if you're not familiar with what that means, power of attorney is the legal authority to make financial decisions on someone else's behalf. Buying a house, signing contracts, moving money. But this wasn't standard power of attorney. According to testimony from Wexner's former attorneys, Epstein had unrestricted access. He could buy property in Wexner's name. He could transfer tens of millions without oversight. He controlled Wexner's private aircraft, his New York mansion, his offshore trusts. In fact, that mansion, the largest private residence in Manhattan, was allegedly gifted to Epstein by Wexner in 1998, valued at over $56 million at the time. Let me repeat that. A billionaire gives a financier with no established track record unrestricted access to his wealth, and gives him a $56 million mansion. Why? Wexner has claimed in sworn depositions that he was unaware of Epstein's criminal activities, that he trusted Epstein as a financial advisor, that he severed ties in 2007 when allegations first surfaced. But the 2026 documents tell a more complicated story. The $1.20 billion paper trail between 1995 and 2007, over $1.2 billion moved through accounts controlled or influenced by Jeffrey Epstein. Much of it originated from Wexner's holding companies. The money went to Southern Trust Company, an Epstein-controlled entity in the U.S., Virgin Islands, where banking regulations are notoriously lax, Nautilus Holdings, a shell company registered in Luxembourg, a favored jurisdiction for tax avoidance, Hyperion Capital Management, registered in Cyprus, with nominee directors whose names appear across dozens of similar entities. Here's what's critical. These weren't investment funds. There were no third-party audits, no investor disclosures, no public filings. These were private vehicles designed for one purpose: moving money invisibly. Leon Black and the Apollo connection. But Wexner wasn't the only billionaire in Epstein's orbit. Leon Black, co-founder of Apollo Global Management, one of the world's largest private equity firms, paid Jeffrey Epstein at least $158 million between 2012 and 2017, according to documents unsealed in 2024 and further detailed in the 2026 archive. Black claimed these payments were for tax advice and estate planning. $158 million for tax advice. To put that in perspective, the most expensive tax attorneys in the United States charge around $2,000 per hour. Even if Epstein worked 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, for 5 years straight, that would total roughly $20 million. So, where did the other $138 million go? The 2026 files don't answer that question directly, but they do show that Epstein introduced Black to foreign officials, facilitated meetings in Israel and Russia, and allegedly brokered access to investment opportunities in emerging markets. This wasn't financial advice. This was access brokering. Epstein was selling proximity to power and billing for it at a rate that would make even the shadiest lobbyists blush. But the money was just the fuel. To understand the engine, we have to look at the 1996 FBI memo that was never supposed to be public. A memo that used two words that changed everything: cooperative status. Pillar 2, the banking shield, JP Morgan Chase and Deutsche Bank. Here's a question. How do you move $1 billion through the global banking system without getting flagged for money laundering? Answer, you don't. Unless you have executive banking status. In 2026, the unsealed documents revealed internal communications from JP Morgan Chase and Deutsche Bank, two of Epstein's primary banking institutions. Between 2002 and 2013, Epstein's accounts at these banks were flagged 4,700 times for suspicious activity. That's not a typo. 4,700 alerts. Wire transfers to shell companies. Cash withdrawals in the millions. Payments to individuals in countries with weak financial oversight. Under U.S. law, banks are required to file suspicious activity reports, or SRs, to the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network when they detect potential money laundering. JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank filed these reports, and then nothing happened. The executive override. According to testimony from former compliance officers, Epstein's accounts were coded as executive client status, a designation typically reserved for heads of state, Fortune 500 CEOs, and sovereign wealth funds. What does that mean? It means that even when automated systems flag transactions as high risk, human reviewers at the executive level could, and did, override those flags. One former Deutsche Bank compliance officer, whose name is redacted in the documents, testified in a 2020 deposition. We knew the account was problematic, but every time we escalated it, we were told to stand down. The message was clear. This client is protected. Protected by whom? That question leads us to the third pillar, because in 2002, while banks were filing thousands of suspicious activity reports, Jeffrey Epstein was also doing something else. He was meeting with intelligence operatives from at least 3 countries. And according to a recently unsealed FBI memo, those meetings weren't investigated. They were facilitated. Pillar 3, the intelligence question. This is where the story gets complicated, and where we have to be extraordinarily careful about separating verified fact from unproven theory. So, let's start with what we know. The 2002 FBI memo. In the 2026 Unsealed Archive, researchers discovered an FBI memo dated August 2002. The memo was sent from the Miami field office to FBI headquarters in Washington. It concerned an investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's financial activities and his associations with foreign nationals. The memo states, and I'm quoting directly from the document, Subject has maintained cooperative status with federal authorities since 1996. Any investigative actions regarding Subject should be coordinated with redacted and redacted prior to proceeding. Cooperative status. Now, in FBI terminology, that phrase typically means one of two things. 1. The person is a confidential informant, someone providing intelligence to law enforcement. 2. The person is a cooperating witness in an ongoing investigation. But here's the problem. Epstein wasn't prosecuted for any federal crime until 2019. So, if he was cooperating in 2002, what was he cooperating on? The intelligence allegations. For years, investigative journalists have alleged that Jeffrey Epstein had ties to intelligence services, specifically Mossad, Israeli intelligence, CIA, US intelligence, MI6, British intelligence. The theory, and it's important to stress that this remains largely unproven, is that Epstein was operating what's called a honey trap or compromat operation, secretly recording powerful individuals in compromising situations to gather blackmail material for intelligence purposes. Is there evidence for this? Some, but it's circumstantial. What we know. Epstein had extensive surveillance systems installed in his properties, including hidden cameras, according to testimony from victims and former employees. Epstein maintained close relationships with intelligence-connected individuals, most notably Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister of Israel and former head of Israeli military intelligence. Barak has admitted to visiting Epstein's properties dozens of times, though he denies any knowledge of illegal activities. In 2019, former Israeli intelligence operative Ari Ben-Menashe claimed in an interview that Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were Israeli intelligence assets. However, Ben-Menashe provided no documentation, and his claims have not been independently verified. So, here's where we are. We have associations. We have suspicious circumstances. We have an FBI memo referencing cooperative status. But we don't have a smoking gun. The 2026 FOIA requests, which is why, in January 2026, Epstein's estate attorneys did something extraordinary. They filed Freedom of Information Act requests with the CIA and NSA, demanding the release of any classified documents relating to Jeffrey Epstein's operational status with U.S. intelligence agencies. The requests argue that if Epstein was, in fact, working on behalf of U.S. intelligence, his estate may have legal grounds to challenge his prosecution and the seizure of his assets. It's a legal Hail Mary. And as of February 2026, both agencies have invoked national security exemptions to deny the requests, which of course only deepens the suspicion. But even if Epstein was protected by intelligence agencies, that doesn't explain how he walked free in 2008. For that, we need to look at the fourth pillar, the legal architecture that made him immortal. Pillar 4, legal immortality. On June 30th, 2008, Jeffrey Epstein signed one of the most controversial plea deals in American legal history. He was accused of sexually abusing dozens of underage girls. The FBI had identified at least 36 victims. Federal prosecutors had prepared a 53-page indictment that could have sent him to prison for life. Instead, Epstein pleaded guilty to 2 state prostitution charges in Florida, served 13 months in a county jail, where he was allowed to leave 6 days a week for work release, and was required to register as a sex offender. But the real magic wasn't the lenient sentence, it was the fine print, the Non-Prosecution Agreement. The plea deal included something called a Non-Prosecution Agreement, or NPA. This agreement, negotiated by Epstein's legal team and signed by then U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta, granted immunity not just to Epstein, but to any potential co-conspirators. That's almost unheard of. Typically, NPAs are used to flip lower-level criminals in exchange for testimony against higher-level targets. But this NPA did the opposite. It protected everyone in Epstein's network. And here's the kicker. The agreement was negotiated in secret. The victims were never notified, a direct violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act. In 2019, a federal judge ruled that prosecutors had acted illegally by concealing the deal. But by then, the statute of limitations had expired on most federal charges, the 1996 and 2002 interventions. But the 2008 NPA wasn't the first time Epstein received special treatment. According to the 2026 documents, there were 2 previous instances where criminal investigations into Epstein were quietly shut down. 1996, Palm Beach police received reports of Epstein's activities involving minors. An investigation was opened. According to internal memos, the case was referred to the FBI. And then, the case was closed. No charges. No explanation. 2002. A second investigation was initiated after additional victims came forward. FBI agents conducted interviews. Evidence was collected. Once again, the case stalled. One of the unsealed memos from this period notes, investigation suspended pending coordination with redacted. No further action at this time. Who was redacted? We don't know. But the pattern is clear. Every time Epstein came close to facing consequences, someone intervened. The Prestige Network. But Epstein's power wasn't just about money and legal protection. It was about access. And in the 2000s and 2010s, Epstein cultivated relationships with some of the most influential figures in science, technology, and academia. The tech elite connection. In 2014, 6 years after his conviction, Jeffrey Epstein invested $3 million in Coinbase, one of the first major cryptocurrency exchanges, according to financial records unsealed in 2026. He also reportedly held Bitcoin positions worth millions, though the exact amounts are difficult to verify due to the anonymized nature of cryptocurrency. How did a registered sex offender maintain access to Silicon Valley's hottest investment opportunities? Through reputation laundering. Epstein donated millions to MIT's Media Lab, Harvard's Program for Evolutionary Dynamics, and other prestigious institutions. These donations bought him legitimacy. They bought him access. They bought him the ability to host dinners with Nobel Prize winners and tech billionaires. One MIT Media Lab director, Joy Ito, was forced to resign in 2019 after it was revealed he'd concealed Epstein's donations and continued meeting with him after his conviction. But the pattern continued for over a decade. Why? Because Epstein understood something fundamental. Prestige is self-reinforcing. Once you're in the room with Nobel laureates, once you're advising billionaires, once you're funding cutting-edge research, people assume you belong there, and very few people ask uncomfortable questions. So, we've mapped the architecture, the financial engine, the banking shield, the intelligence question, the legal immortality, the prestige network. But here's what everyone wants to know. If we have 3 million pages proving all of this, why is no one going to jail? The silence architecture. The answer is simpler and more disturbing than you might think. Non-disclosure agreements. Jeffrey Epstein's operation relied on a system of enforced silence. Victims were paid settlements in exchange for signing NDAs, non-disclosure agreements that legally prohibited them from discussing what happened. Employees at his properties signed NDAs. Associates signed NDAs. Even people who simply attended events at his homes were often required to sign NDAs. According to the 2026 documents, Epstein's legal team filed over 140 lawsuits to enforce these agreements between 2008 and 2019. The message was clear: speak out and we will destroy you financially. Intimidation. But NDAs weren't the only tool. Multiple victims have testified, both in the 2026 documents and in previous court proceedings, that they were followed, harassed, and threatened after coming forward. One woman described finding her brakes cut after giving a statement to police. Another reported break-ins at her home where nothing was stolen, just moved. A third received photos of her children at school with no note attached. None of these incidents were ever formally investigated. Why? Because by the time they occurred, the people with the power to investigate had already decided that Epstein was protected. Why no arrests? The legal reality. So, with 3 million pages of evidence, why aren't people being arrested? There are 4 reasons. Reason 1, statute of limitations. Most of the criminal activity documented in the unsealed files occurred between 1996 and 2008. Under federal law, the statute of limitations for most sex trafficking charges is 10 years from the date of the offense or the victim's 18th birthday, whichever is later. That means many of the crimes are no longer prosecutable. Reason 2, the 2008 NPA. The 2008 Non-Prosecution Agreement granted immunity to any potential co-conspirators. While that agreement has been challenged and partially invalidated, it still creates significant legal obstacles for prosecutors trying to bring charges against individuals in Epstein's network. Reason 3, sovereign immunity and diplomatic protection. Several of the individuals named in the unsealed documents are foreign nationals with diplomatic status or government positions. Prosecuting them would require international cooperation, extradition treaties, and political will that, frankly, doesn't exist. Reason 4, evidentiary standards. And finally, there's the most frustrating reason of all. Having evidence isn't the same as having admissible evidence. Many of the documents unsealed in 2026 are civil depositions, hearsay testimony, or financial records that don't directly prove criminal intent. To bring charges, prosecutors need evidence that meets the standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. And in many cases, that evidence simply doesn't exist anymore. Accountability versus justice. So, where does that leave us? In February 2026, we have more information about Jeffrey Epstein's network than ever before. We know who funded him, we know which banks protected him, we have strong circumstantial evidence of intelligence connections. We understand the legal mechanisms that kept him untouchable. But we don't have justice, because justice requires more than truth. It requires accountability, and accountability requires systems that function. The system that allowed Jeffrey Epstein to operate for 3 decades is the same system that's supposed to hold his enablers responsible. And that system is broken. Not because of a single corrupt official, not because of one bad decision, but because at every level, financial, legal, political, there were people who chose to look the other way. People who took the money, signed the NDAs, approved the wire transfers, closed the investigations, and most of them are still in power. Closing. Call to action. This is the Unsealed Report, and our mission is simple: to follow the documents, to map the networks, to demand accountability. The 3 million pages released in January 2026 are just the beginning. There are still classified files, still sealed depositions, still ongoing investigations, and we're going to cover all of it. If you believe that powerful people shouldn't be above the law, subscribe to this channel. If you want to stay updated as more documents are unsealed, hit the notification bell. And if you think this story deserves to be told, share this video, because the only way systems change is when enough people refuse to accept how they work. Jeffrey Epstein is dead, but the architecture that protected him is still standing, and it's our job to tear it down.